Hey guys, what's going on? Mike the Caveman Kuhn here again for Paleo Problem Long Island and MikeTheCaveman.com. And today's question has to do with, should we be taking resistant starch? So what is resistant starch? Well, when most people think about starches, they think about white rice or like potatoes, but there are also what are called resistant starches, which are literally just that. They are resistant to digestion. So what are those? Well, there are a couple of different examples. The first type are what are called resistant starch type 1, and they are physically indigestible starches. Those are what you'll see in different grains, legumes, and seeds. That's one of the many reasons why we can't eat them raw, is that the starches that are in them, they are unable to be digested. So that type 2 is what's called resistant starch granules. In different types of roots and tubers like potatoes and sweet potatoes, you'll find it in yucca and plantain and taro. You'll find it in cassava, tapioca. But you also find it in unripened bananas and green plantains, so green bananas and plantains. Now the third type is what's called retrograded starch, and that is what occurs when you cook and cool various starches, such as those previously mentioned white rice or white potatoes. So when you cook those, it liberates the starch that was in it before. So that indigestible starch in the case of the white rice, that indigestible starch is now liberated, it's now available for digestion. Well, when you cool it, it actually recrystallizes, it gelatinizes into a new form of starch called RS3, resistant starch 3. That actually plays a major role in why different populations that consume a lot of starchy stuff, particularly like white rice, are able to still not gain a lot of weight. They don't see that same insulin release. Specifically, you can think about various Asian populations, sushi rice. The vinegar deals with the insulin release a little bit, but on the other end, usually that rice is cooked and then it's cooled and sits there for a long time. Another example would be, let's say, bodybuilders, right? What do? Generally, they're meal prepping a week in advance and they're reheating that cooled rice. So while they eat a lot of rice, and yes, they are working out a lot, so they do need a little bit more carbohydrate, the fact of the matter is they are cooking and cooling that rice. So generally, they are inadvertently creating that resistant starch. So what are the benefits to it? Well, just like the name implies, those starches are resistant to digestion. They don't get digested in our own tract. They make it undisturbed to the colon, where our gut bacteria digest it for us. Once fermented by those gut bacteria, they produce butyrate, which we've talked about a couple of times now, is a short-chain fatty acid that we found originally in butter, but the bacteria in our gut are able to ferment that resistant starch and create that butyrate, which is actually a main source of fuel for our colon cells, and has been shown to be protective against colon cancer. So a lot of people, they'll go on lower or low-ish carb diets, or they might even go full into a ketogenic type diet, particularly if they're experiencing certain conditions like seizures and neurodegenerative and cancer. Because these aren't being digested by our own digestive tract, it doesn't create the same insulin release. Our bacteria are the ones doing it, and they convert it to those fatty acids. In fact, it may actually improve insulin sensitivity. So you still get to see some of the benefits of a low-carb or ketogenic diet, yet still be able to eat white rice and or white potatoes occasionally. I've also seen some benefit for those who are experiencing a little bit of constipation on that lowish carb diet. So how do we start to implement that? Well, you can start with small doses, maybe like half a cup of cooked and then cooled rice. Let it cook in the morning, and then that nighttime, you'll have the rice ready for you. Leave it in the fridge all day, and you'll have that rice ready for you. Same thing with potato, maybe half potato. You can also try it with different flours. So potato flour, not potato starch. So very clear on that. Potato flour, like say Bob's Red Mill. You can go with that. You can try tiger nut flour. Plantain flours. You can go with actual, just get super green bananas or green plantains. These are RS2, whereas the cooked and cooled is resistant starch 3. These are sources of RS2. And you can just throw those into a shake. So you can blend those all up with a little bit of protein, maybe a little bit of MCT oil, get skinny fat, and you'll see a lot of benefit from that. Now, here's the caveat. If you are experiencing some gut dysbiosis, particularly SIBO, that's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, these may not be for you. What you're going to want to do is notice any kind of symptoms you have going on. If you experience any gas or bloating or any kind of stomach pains, odds are you may have a little bacterial overgrowth going on. So we're talking specifically about those flours. We're talking about starting at 1 teaspoon, about 5 grams. If that's too much, if you experience any of those symptoms, half the dose, go down to half a teaspoon. If you're still feeling anything, half of that. Just titrate back until you find your magic dose, and then you can build yourself up. Therapeutic dose is generally seen to be about 2 tablespoons or 30 grams. So while it's therapeutic dose, you don't want to start there. Trust me, I made that mistake myself. The first time I ever started taking Megaspore, I also was playing around with resistant starch. I just jumped right in. I was doing a tablespoon of potato flour, 1 green banana inside of a shake, and I started that with Megaspore, and I jumped that up too quick, and I got a major die-off, major gas, and it was not fun. So trust me on this from experience, don't do that. If you want to start working around with resistant starch, do not go too fast, too quick. Start at that 1 teaspoon, spend a couple of days. If it's good, go up to 2. If that's good, keep going. And you're going to build up to 2 tablespoons. Don't go over that. The alternative is to go with a little bit of that white rice or that white potato. That's why occasionally I'll go out for sushi and I don't mind having that white rice. But if you are one of those people who does experience that digestive upset, and it does not go away when you titrate down. If you get down to, let's say, a 1/16 of a teaspoon and it's still there, well, that's a pretty good sign that you do have some SIBO going on. You're going to want to get onto some antimicrobials. So you start with that grapefruit seed extract, then you add in a quality probiotic like that Megaspore. You have that Megaspore, it's going to help clear the way. Then once you've started to competitively crowd out those pathogenic ones, at that point it's time to feed those bacteria and you should be able to reintroduce that low level. Maybe I'd start at half a teaspoon that time. So the biggest takeaways for today are that you can see some serious benefits with introducing resistant starches to your meal plan, particularly if you are on a lowish to ketogenic style diet. If you have gut issues going on, make sure you deal with those first and start slow. That is the biggest key. Start slow. Build your way up, get in that quality probiotic, take the antimicrobial if you need it, and build up from there. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have any more questions, you know what to do. Either way, like and subscribe down below, share it with your friends, head over to Facebook, over at Paleo Primal Long Island, over on Instagram and Twitter at Mike the Caveman, and of course over on MikeTheCaveman.com. That being said guys, have a wonderful day. Again, this weather, I'm loving it. See you tomorrow.